In this video, we are going to access to the SAP system through SAP Graphic User Interface. The way to enter in each computer is through the SAP Graphic User Interface program, called SAP Login. SAP Graphic User Interface is a graphical interface that allows us to interact with the program. And when we are working with the transactions, when storing the data, the advantage is that the data is not saved inside the computer where the SAP Graphic User Interface program is installed. Instead, all that is stored within the servers that may be in the company or outside it, in a different place, either within the country or outside the country. Therefore, in order to interact with all the transactions that each user is allowed, it is necessary to enter our SAP system through our computers. For this, we are going, in this case, to click this button. And in other systems, you have to enter with the start button, and you must locate the SAP login icon like this. This icon allows us to enter our SAP Graphic User Interface system. If it does not appear in the main start menu, we, through the list of programs, have to check the SAP folder. Then we are going to press this icon that could also be inside the desktop, just in case. Now we are going to click this in this icon, double click, and the SAP welcome screen will appear that will depend on the version that is installed. In this case, it is 740, as we see here. And what you see now is the initial connection window. Most likely, the connections are already installed within the SAP system. In the event that it is not installed by the system administrator, it is necessary the administrator gives to each person, each user, what data is necessarily to register in order to make a successful connection. For example, we see that a connection whose server name is Basil is already saved, and at the same time, it also has the data such as the system identification, which is generally 3 letters, the IDs, the group server, which can be a numeric address, or it can be through an internet access, and also the instance number. These 4 data are relevant to generate the successful connection to SAP. Now, in order to make the connection with the cells in blank, in new row, for example, we must press the new button that appears here. We press it now, and the Create New System Entry window will appear, and an option that is User-Specific System will appear, called Sistema Específico de Usuario in Spanish. We must press double-click in here, and in this case, the connection parameters to the system appear to us. So, what are the parameters that are relevant? First, description. The second, the application server. The third, the instance number. And the fourth, the system ID. These are the data that we have to add on the window. Once this step is done, we click the Finish button to confirm this data and save this connection within our computer. Now we are going to see an example of how the data appears with one of these conditions, with one of these 3 conditions that appear here. For example, in here, let's go to with the basal option here, and we're going to click with the right button, and we are going to select properties. Note that now in the connection tab, it appears where each of the data that appears within this line is written. So for example, basal is written in the cell description. This direction, basal.csuchico.edu, is placed on the application server cell. The number 26 as instance number and BAS as the system ID. So these are the 4 relevant information data to the net. For this example and for the next videos, I am going to work with the Global Bike Incorporated company. This is a fictitious company, and the objective is the users prior to the actual use of the SAP system can interact with each of the transactions and see what the results are generated. So Global Bike has all the modules enabled so that each user can make use of them. In reality, the company does not have all the modules enabled for the user. For example, if a user works in the sales section, he will probably only have the modules corresponding to sales sales works, processes, etc. So now, in order to access this connection, we double-click. First, we must click on this button in order to close this window. And in order to access this connection, we double-click in here on the basal server, double-click, and the user login system will appear like this, for example. So in this window, we must enter 4 data. For example, the first data is called, in here appears mandante in Spanish, but in English is called client. Client is the number that every user who belongs to the same company must type on the system. Contains is a 3-number code. Therefore, for each user, the client will be exactly the same number. In the case of this video, the client that we have to enter is 2H5. It should be noted that the client number is not necessarily 285. This number has to be informed by the system administrator. Second, the users field. Each user will have a code that is combined with letters and numbers that the system administrator will provide. Let's, for example, enter the username learn 040. The third cell. When a user logs in for the first time, the password will be informed by the system administrator. So this cell is the password and is made up of letters and numbers. It should be noted that SAP distinguishes between lowercase and uppercase letters, just in case. This time we are going to enter with an initial password provided by the system administrator for this case, for this video. So I'm going to enter the password. So we have 3 cells ready, and the last cell is the language cell. So in this case, when I put the language, for example, in English, which is EN, the whole environment that I am going to enter will then be shown in totally English. If I type, for example, ES for Spanish, then the whole environment will appear in Spanish. So now we are going to leave the EN language in the box, and then we are going to access pressing this button, continue, that appears here. We access, and when one enters for the first time, this window appears in which SAP tells us that we must necessarily enter a new access key or a new password. And this password will be the one that we will later use for the next entries with the same user. So I'm going to put in a new password. For example, a password with 6 characters, and we have to repeat the password in the second cell. It should be noted that the moment the new password is saved and if one enters a password later, 3 times in a row incorrectly, the SAP system will block that user. Therefore, the user must contact the system administrator to proceed with unlocking and resetting the password. Let's then press the button here, enter or transfer here. So let's press the transfer button, and probably a welcome window like this will appear where all rights reserved are mentioned, for example. So if you look here, as this is the first entry, everything related to reserved rights appears. We press now the continue button, and finally we access our SAP system, like this, in which SAP Easy Access appears and the work area where all the folders available for the system appear. It may happen that in the case of your company, these folders are not all as they appear here. Probably one or more of the following folders appears. For example, logistics, accounting, for example, or human resources, or information systems alone, etc. Within the only, the information systems only, for example, within the SAP system. So in this way, we access the SAP Easy Access system. Now, if we want to exit the system, we simply press the close button here. So we click on this button, and then a pop window will appear indicating that all unsaved data will be lost. We confirm the exit of the system, pressing yes, and return again to the connection screen. And if we want to reconnect again, we press this server again. So for example, I double click on this. But in this case, I'm going to put first the client 285, the user learn 040, but with the new user password that we previously entered. My password of 6 letters, numbers, etc. In this case. So now I put EM for the language. I can click on this button and continue, or simply I can press enter, and the SAP system appears again like this. So therefore, in the next sessions, we will have already entered the SAP system just in case. So in the next videos, we are going to review some definitions of SAP, how we enter to the folders, for example, how we configure the favorites section, among other elements.